Good evening, council, staff, and members of the public. May I have a mover and seconder to call the meeting to order, please? I have councillors Fisher and Moore that the special meeting of the Council of the Township of Springwater of April 10th, 2024 come to order at 6:30 p.m. All those in favor? And that has carried. Councillor, are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest this evening? And seeing none, at this time, I will pass the chair, and this is not due to any conflict with anything this evening. However, members of council have expressed interest in experienced chairing. So this evening, I will be passing the chair to Councillor Thompson and now Chair Thompson.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. May I have a mover and seconder to call this public meeting to order? I have councillors Fisher and Moore that this public meeting of council be held under section 17, 21, 34, and 51 of the Planning Act for applications ZB 2024-001, B Franson, ZB 2024-008, R Randall, OP 2024-2002, and ZB 2024-003, McColgan Pit Extension, and SU 2004-001 OP 2024-003 and ZB 2024-004 Huron Park be called to order at 6:32 p.m. Welcome to this public meeting of Springwater Township Council held in compliance with sections 17, 21, 34, and 51 of the Planning Act to give the public an opportunity to express their views in regard to the proposed developments and amendments to the Township of Springwater zoning bylaw and official plan as amended. Following presentation of each proposal and amendment, the public will be given the opportunity to make an oral submission through the Zoom application or in person. Any person wishing to make an oral submission is to have notified the township prior to 5:30 p.m. yesterday, April 9th, and be added to the commenters list. If a person or public body who files an appeal of a decision of the township of Springwater in respect of the planning of the plan of subdivision, official plan amendment, or zoning bylaw amendment does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or written submissions to the Township of Springwater before the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is passed, the Ontario Land Tribunal may dismiss all or part of the appeal. All comments or questions should be addressed through the chair. Oral submissions will be included in this meeting's minutes and form part of the public record, including the name and address of the speaker as information collected under the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. The minutes of this meeting will be posted on the township's website. ZB 2024-001, B Franson, 4299 Penetanguishene Road. I will now call upon the clerk to confirm notice of this meeting and the dates in which notice was given.
Notice of this public meeting was mailed on the 21st day of March, 2024 to the owner of the subject lands and to the assessed owners of 14 properties in the Township of Springwater within 240 meters of the area to which the proposed amendment would apply, and to all persons and public bodies as prescribed under the Planning Act and its regulations. Notice was posted at the assessed property to which the proposed amendment applies at a location visible from Penetanguishene Road. Notice was also posted on the township's website.
Has the planning department received any correspondence in response to the notice of public meeting?
There was one item of correspondence received from Enbridge Gas in an email dated February 6, 2024, and the correspondence can be found attached to this evening's agenda.
Thank you, Director Ainsworth. Now I call upon Planner Belcourt to outline the purpose and effect of the zoning bylaw amendment.
Thank you, Chair Thompson and Council. The purpose of zoning bylaw application ZB 2024-001 is to rezone lands located at 4299 Penetanguishene Road from the existing agricultural A zone to the site-specific agricultural exception zone. The effect of the proposed amendment is to permit the construction of an oversized detached accessory building with a total area of 168.6 square meters, being 1,815 square feet. Of the total area, 61.5 square meters or 662 square feet is to be occupied by an additional residential unit, and the remaining 107.12 square meters or 1,153 square feet is to be dedicated to a garage storage space to service both the primary dwelling and ARU on the property. The structure is proposed to be located in the rear yard, northeast of the existing dwelling. Should council or the public have any questions on the application this evening, both myself and the applicant's agent, Mr. Mulholland, are available. Thank you.
Thank you, Planner Belcourt. And now I call upon the moderator to provide the number of people who have registered to ask questions or make comments regarding this application.
Thank you, Chair Thompson. There have been no members of the public who have registered to make an oral submission for this application.
Thank you. Are there any other individuals who are present here tonight who would like to make an oral submission regarding this public meeting? Do any members of council have any questions or comments regarding this application?
Through the chair, Councilor Moore, I think those folks had a little bit of trouble hearing that last comment. Would you please repeat the last bit there?
Sure. Thank you,
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Cabral. Are there any other individuals who are present here tonight who would like to make an oral submission regarding this public meeting, regarding this application? We're okay? Okay, all right. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Do any members of council have any questions or comments regarding this application? Seeing none, okay. Thank you for all who participated in this public meeting with respect to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment and for showing an interest in this matter. ZB 2024-008, R Randall, Block 60, Plan 51M, 430 Foyston Gate. I now call upon the clerk to confirm notice of this meeting and the dates on which notice was given.
Notice of this public meeting was mailed on the 21st day of March, 2024 to the owner of the subject lands and to the assessed owners of 28 properties in the township of Springwater within 120 meters of the area to which the proposed amendment would apply, and to all persons and public bodies as prescribed under the Planning Act and its regulations. Notice was posted at the assessed property to which the proposed amendment applies at a location visible from Foyston Gate. Notice was also posted on the township's website.
Thank you, Director Ainsworth. Has the planning department received any correspondence in response to the notice of public meeting?
Correspondence was received from Enbridge Gas in an email dated April 1st, 2024, from resident R. Ramola of 12 Foyston Park Circle in a letter dated April 8th, 2024. Resident B. McDonald of 10 Foyston Gate in a letter dated April 9th, 2024. Resident C. Lumley of 10 Foyston Park Circle in a letter dated April 9th, 2024. Resident N. Trethewu, my apologies, of 21 Foyston Park Circle in an email dated April 9th, 2024. And resident B. Medias of 39 Foyston Park Circle in a letter dated April 9th, 2024. The correspondence can be found attached to this evening's agenda.
Thank you, Director Ainsworth. I now call upon applicant Ryan Randall to outline the purpose and effect of the zoning bylaw.
I'm Ryan Randall. I'm the applicant and agent to the owner. The purpose, or I've been appointed as the agent and applicant and retained to facilitate the planning approval process for the proposed zoning bylaw amendment. The purpose of this zoning bylaw amendment application is to rezone the subject property from R1 zone to a site-specific residential exception, R1 exception zone, to permit the construction of a single-family dwelling on the lot with a slightly reduced lot area and lot frontage and slightly increased lot coverage. As set out by the official plan, a site plan has been submitted concurrently. The site plan illustrates that the subject property can suitably accommodate the proposed single-family home, along with the attached garage and necessary septic services. The site plan also demonstrates that all setbacks can be met. So you can see the site plan on one of the following slides here, which we'll get to. The purpose of this report is to describe the subject property and to explain the purpose of the zoning bylaw amendment and to describe how the proposed single-family dwelling can function compatibly with the adjacent properties and the surrounding neighborhood. The location and description of the land. The subject property is located on the north side of Foyston Gate, which is a low-density residential neighborhood. It's a low-density residential neighborhood within the settlement area of Minnesing in the township of Springwater. The property is currently a vacant parcel. The property has 19.55 meters, which is 64.14 feet of frontage onto Foyston Gate. And the property has a total area of approximately 925 meters squared, which is 9,956.6 square feet. The vehicular access and parking on the property is proposed as being standard. It's a standard permitted driveway, which would fall under, once we get there, the, I guess, the building process and the appropriate permits. Again, it's meeting all setbacks. So the width of the proposed driveway is consistent with a standard two-car garage, which also is illustrated on the site plan. The surrounding uses of the neighborhood consists of a mixture of primarily single detached dwellings with small portion duplexes in some areas and small multi-unit buildings in the settlement area, consistent with other typical small settlement areas in Simcoe County. Below is an itemized description of all uses adjacent to the subject property. To the north, we have, it's bound by low-density residential buildings. East of the property is bound to low-density residential dwellings as well. To the south, it's bound by low-density and agricultural uses. And to the west is low-density and agricultural various uses as well. Attached are similar various single-family dwelling properties. Some are within 120 meters within close proximity to the subject property, and also in the same settlement area of Minnesing, which are zoned the same and serviced by municipal water and private sewage. They all have a similar lot frontage, these examples do, and similar lot area or less lot frontage and less lot area. The purpose of this is to demonstrate the feasibility of a single-family residential dwelling along with the required services on a lot of the same size and frontage or lesser lot frontage and lot area. So we have families residing in these dwellings, which some of them have been for years. I don't know the exact time they were built or anything, but as you can see on the first example, 1666 George Johnson, the lot frontage is 17.72 meters, which is less than the 19.55. And these are approximate, but measured off of Simcoe maps, which is fairly accurate. 1666 George Johnson, the lot area is 911.51, which is less than the proposed zoning bylaw amendment, the lot in question. 1697 George Johnson, it has 796.57 meters squared, which is significantly less. 16 Huron, 784.07 meters squared of lot area, which is again significantly less. 16 Huron has similar lot frontage, 19.43 meters. 1697 George Johnson, 19.73 meters of lot frontage, which is very similar. In close proximity, we have 2422 Ronald Road, which is under the zoning bylaw, however, slightly larger lot frontage, but in the direct neighborhood, 21.92 meters of lot frontage. So those are some examples of how we can demonstrate that the lot flows sufficiently safely, with the septic system and meeting all setbacks and with all the amenities required for a house to be permitted on that lot. An overview of the proposed development. The proposed single-family dwelling is a 3-bedroom detached with a front porch, 2-car garage, full-height basement, 128-meter squared footprint, and possible loft above, so it would fit a family quite nicely. 2-car width driveway. The finishes would be aesthetically pleasing, which would complement the neighborhood. And again, you see on the site plan, the septic in the back meets all the setbacks. We do have an engineer that submitted comments and a letter and did calculations regarding this, and that is submitted with the application. So any concerns regarding whether it will or will not fit are addressed by a qualified professional Ontario engineer. So the staff comments, it's important to note that Springwater Planning staff have provided an opinion on the proposed application and that it meets preliminary requirements to move forward with this public meeting. Staff mentioned that the application supports the township's goal of leveraging growth to improve Springwater as a community. In the official plan, section 3.1, the subject property is located within the built-up area of the Minising settlement area. The conceptual single detached dwelling is proposed to be 128 square meters. We went over all of those numbers. As such, the applicant is proposing the following amendments to the zoning bylaw 5000. So as we know, we're proposing 925 meters squared again, which is reduced lot area, a reduced lot frontage, 19.55 meters, and a 23% lot coverage versus 20. No other amendments to the provisions of the zoning bylaw are proposed at this point in time. As part of the application, nothing's proposed. It meets all the setbacks, so we just wanted to point that out. As far as the provincial, the planning policy framework, the PPS, or the provincial policy statement, provides direction on matters related to the land use planning and sets the policy foundation for regulating the development use of all land in the province. The most directly applicable policy affecting the proposed residential development is section 1.1.3 in the settlement areas and section 1.6.6, whereas the deals with sewage and water servicing and stormwater and such. A review of these policies. That's a typo. Just delete that section there, the last section. Section 1.131, which is settlement areas shall be focused on growth and development. And the section 1.6.6.2, the subject property is located within the recognized Minising settlement area, which is supported by the intensification direction provided by the PPS. Municipal water services are the preferred form of servicing for settlement areas to support protection of the environment and minimize potential risks to human health and safety within settlement areas with existing water services. Intensification and redevelopment shall be promoted wherever feasible to optimize the use of services. It is the opinion of myself that the enclosed zoning bylaw amendment application to permit a single-family dwelling in a service built-up area is consistent with the PPS. And then the greater growth plan, or the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe is prepared under the Places to Grow Act to guide decisions on a wide range of issues such as transportation infrastructure planning and land use planning, urban form housing, and natural heritage and resource planning. All decisions, all planning decisions made within the Greater Golden Horseshoe must have regard for the growth plan, and it prevails over the provincial policy statement. The most direct applicable policy areas affecting the proposed residential are section 2.2.2, which is delineated built-up areas, and section 2.2.6, which is the housing, and section 6.2, which is the growth forecast. It is the opinion of myself that the proposed development conforms to the growth plan for the following reasons. The proposed residential dwelling will assist the town and the county of Simcoe in meeting its intensification targets within the built-up areas. And the subject property is located within a recognized settlement area and is close proximity to a variety of arterial roads. The residential dwelling will benefit from being in close proximity to all necessary amenities. Local services are within walking distance, and the property is serviced by municipal water. No expansion to municipal infrastructure are required to accommodate the proposed use. And the proposed additional dwelling will assist the town in developing a more complete community by adding more housing options and densities to its housing stock. The property is located in Minnesota within close proximity and to municipal parkland areas, among others. For these reasons, the proposed additional dwelling unit within the settlement area is encouraged by the growth plan. Is the opinion of myself that the proposed residential dwelling in a built-up area is consistent with its vision and guiding principles. The County of Simcoe official plan, it's located within the built-up settlement area. In accordance with section 351, settlements are to be the focus of population and employment growth and development. The county official plan directs that settlements are to develop a compact urban form that promotes efficient use of land and services and promote development forms and patterns that minimize land consumption and servicing costs, which this does. In accordance with section 3.523 and 3.524, Springwater must achieve the density and intensification targets set out by the county official plan. The proposed development proposed a compact urban form that efficiently uses and minimizes land consumption and servicing costs. The proposed development will increase density within the Minising settlement via new construction. The proposed dwelling will continue to promote the County of Simcoe's goal in providing more residential opportunities within these designated settlement areas. Will aid Springwater and the County of Simcoe in achieving the required density targets, and it's the opinion of myself that the enclosed application conforms with the applicable policies in the county official plan. Lastly, the Springwater official plan is section 2.2.5 to create efficient, cost-effective development and land use patterns, to direct new growth to existing urban settlement areas and encourage and provide every opportunity to create a vibrant community planning context in our villages and small urban places. It is also the intent of the plan to reduce the amount and relative percentage share of the projected future residential growth of the township locating outside the urban settlement areas, and generally implement the Springwater growth management strategy, which identified a number of opportunities to accommodate growth and development in existing settlement areas. Within built-up areas, where there is sufficient infrastructure capacity, The intensification of residential uses may be considered to increase the potential supply of new housing units. The township will endeavor to reduce the cost of housing by providing for cost-effective development standards and regulations as it may be deemed appropriate. So in conclusion, the purpose of this enclosed zoning bylaw amendment is to rezone the property from residential 1 zone to a site-specific residential exception R1 zone to permit the construction of a family dwelling. It is in my opinion, that the application submitted herein represents good land use planning for the following reasons. The application conforms to the intents and policies of both the County of Simcoe, the Township of Springwater official plans, the provincial policy statement, and a place to grow, the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe. The subject property is located within a recognized settlement as defined as the PPS. These areas are to be the focus of the highest residential density to service a community and shall be the focus for new and innovative residential development. The neighborhood and settlement area consists of a mixture of single detached dwellings, duplexes, and small multi-unit buildings. The proposed dwelling is compatible with the abutting land uses and respects the residential nature of the neighborhood. The exterior of the building will maintain consistency with the existing residential character of the neighborhood, and the site plan submitted herein confirms that the subject property can suitably accommodate a residential dwelling. So having said that, I see that there's a few, letters from the neighbors and such. I truly appreciate as a homeowner where, when someone comes in and tries to change something, that can be quite disturbing and quite a few other things. I understand that. We're looking to create housing. The alternative with the new official plans that have come out recently and with everything changing with the provincial government, things are getting, we've got second suites, we've got, fourth units being thrown out there as a possibility. Our owners are looking at this as if we can get a single family and fit the fabric of the neighborhood, that's what we're looking to do versus the alternative is keep it the same and add garden suites for rentals and, 1 to 2 or whatever's permitted. And I think I'm going out on a limb, but I think that the neighbors would be more disturbed with that than a nice residential house, which we don't even know who the owner or, the occupant would be. A lot of these letters suggest that, there's some safety concerns. The kids are in danger because of the parking issues. I would say that there's zoning bylaws in place for cars parked on the road. They would, have to address those issues. There's building, we'd have to go through the building process and meet all setbacks and design, to the bylaw and the official plan. So that would be covered there. As far as looking at it in a negative light where someone's going to get issued, I prefer to see it in a positive light. It's creating housing for somebody, it's creating tax revenue for keeping taxes lower for the residents in the neighborhood. We don't know who's moving in there, so it could be a single parent, it could be a family with kids, it could be seniors that don't drive and leave cars on the road. So to make assumptions that there's a danger, I think is kind of early to comment. It could be a doctor, let's say, out for a walk in the morning who saves someone's life. It's an extra set of eyes, Could be a guy walking down the street, sees someone on the road and he saves his life. So it could be a positive experience as well. Not always negative. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Randall. I now call upon the moderator to provide the number of people who have registered to ask questions or make comments regarding this application.
Yes, thank you, Chair Thompson. There have been no members of the public who have registered to make any oral submissions for this application.
Thank you. Are there any other individuals who are present here tonight who would like to make an oral submission regarding this public meeting? Seeing none, are there any members of council who have questions or comments regarding this application? Seeing none, thank you for all who have participated in this public meeting with respect to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment and for showing an interest in this matter. OP 2024-002 and ZB 2024-003, McColgan Pit Expansion, 1196 Ann Street North. I will now call upon the clerk to confirm notice of this meeting and the dates in which notice was given.
Notice of this public meeting was mailed on the 21st day of March, 2024 to the owner of the subject lands and to the assessed owners of 403 properties in the township of Springwater within 800 meters of the area to which the proposed amendment would apply, and to all persons and public bodies as prescribed under the Planning Act and its regulations. Notice was posted at the assessed property to which the proposed amendment applies at a location visible from Ann Street North. Notice was also posted on the township's website.
Thank you, Director Ainsworth. Has the planning department received any correspondence in response to the notice of public meeting?
Correspondence was received from Enbridge Gas in an email dated February 26, 2024, from the Township of Springwater Building Department in an email dated February 26, 2024, from the Township of Springwater Infrastructure and Operations Department in an email dated February 27, 2024, from the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority in an email dated March 12, 2024, and from the County of Simcoe in an email dated March 20, 2024. And the correspondence can be found attached to this evening's agenda.
Thank you, Director Ainsworth. I'll now call upon Agent James Hunter of Innovative Planning Solutions to outline the purpose and effect of the official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment.
Hey, good evening, council, members of the public and staff in attendance tonight. My name is James Hunter and I'm associate with Innovative Planning Solutions. We're here tonight representing 1693297 Ontario Inc., but many people know them as Icy's Brothers. We're here tonight on behalf of them for a pit expansion for lands located at 1196 Ann Street North.
I'm sorry, and when you want to move slides, if you could state it out loud for
Oh,
the person
yeah.
controlling the slides. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So the subject lands are municipally known as 1196 Ann Street North, and they are part of the Midhurst settlement area positioned at the western limits. They are located within a predominantly industrial or employment area with a diverse range of uses along Snow Valley Road. And the site is uniquely positioned with connections to county and arterial roads leading to City of Barrie and throughout the township of Springwater. So this includes Snow Valley Road, Wilson Drive, Bayfield Street North, and County Road 27, which are all very usable for aggregate hauling. Next slide, please. To take a look at the subject lands, what we're showing on the slide here in yellow is existing operations, which is located at 1368, 1322 Snow Valley Road. So this does contain an existing licensed aggregate operation, which is owned and operated by the applicant. And that has a combined frontage of approximately 690 meters and land holdings of just over 50 acres in size. So the subject applications and the lands that we're speaking to tonight are shown in red, which is 1196 Ann Street North. So that is a site area of 21.7 acres and 62 meters of frontage along Ann Street North. The lands are currently vacant with sparse tree cover, and they have visible disturbance from previous uses and site alteration. The property is not licensed for extraction, as the lands in yellow are shown, but extraction is ultimately required to match grade with the existing pit, and this will allow future employment uses to continue, which I'll speak to after. Next slide, please. Regarding the existing operation, so it's Ontario Inc. Company as the applicant, but many people know them as Icy's Excavating. So they've been serving the township and the surrounding community since 1973, and they offer full service excavation and haulage. So the lands that we're showing here in yellow is the existing operations, which you would know as the McColgan Pit. And that area is licensed for a Class A operation, which is permission for extraction above the water table. And it has a license with an extraction of 400,000 tons per year. So the entire property is licensed at 20.25 hectares. And the existing license was first issued in 1994 with the current license and under operations from 2007. So for the existing operations, there is one entrance off of Snow Valley Road, which is used for all entrance and exit operations. And the lands produce good quality sand and gravel material, which you'll know for using granular B, winter sand, septic sand, and drain stone. So this is good for construction work, operations on roads and maintenance activities. With the full operations of this pit, we expect the lifespan to be approximately 5 years, but this is subject to haul volume per year and demand. Next slide, please. So to zoom in closer on the proposed expansion of what we're speaking to here tonight, that's shown on the slide in red. That is our expansion lands that we're going to call it. And that is for an Aggregate Resources Act license for Class A, which is also, again, above the water table, matching the existing operations. And what we're seeking is a license area of 8.8 hectares. And after the setbacks, that leaves us with an extraction area of just over 7 hectares. Something important to note is that the extraction license would permit 400,000 tons annually, and we're sharing this with the existing operations, so there's no actual increase requested with our application, as well as access for the operations would be off Snow Valley Road, so the existing operations entrance would be utilized as well for the expansion. So ultimately, what does this mean? There's no additional truck traffic per day, and it's all controlled based on where the existing operations have been running. The extraction limits that we're showing, it's hard to see in the slide, but it's got a black hatch line. That's established by ministry and township requirements. So you'd be 15 to 30 meters from any property line. And of course, the life expectancy of this operation is based on the market demand. Next slide, please. To touch quickly on the county official plan. So Midhurst is designated settlements, where that's the focus for population and employment growth. More specifically for our application, the lands are identified as sand and gravel resources. So the county is noting that these lands have high potential for mineral aggregate resources, as well as the development of these lands with the known materials is protected for the long-term expansion and continued use of aggregate. And what you'll see on the slide there in red is existing operations with the yellow outline. So any licensed pit and quarries are shown with that, as well as Snow Valley Road, where the operations are running to and from is a primary arterial. So that's good for supporting operations. Next slide, please. Speaking to the township official plan, in this case, we're speaking to the Midhurst secondary plan, where the subject lands are designated as employment. The existing operations are also in the deployment designation. And what we're here seeking tonight is the official plan amendment, which would go to the employment exception. So the exception is specifically to add extractive industrial uses as a site-specific use on the property. And ultimately, once the license is surrendered, other uses under the employment designation will proceed with the benefit of having existing aggregate resources extracted. Next slide, please. Regarding the township zoning bylaw, right now the subject lands are zoned as agricultural under bylaw 5000. So matching the existing operations, which is ME or extractive industrial, we're seeking a zoning bylaw amendment to bring the lands into an extractive industrial ME zone with site-specific exceptions. And ultimately, what we're after is to get this rezoning in place so that it permits extractive industrial uses. But ultimately, we would match the deployment designation on this property once materials are depleted. So we would expect that a zoning bylaw amendment in the future would come forward to return it back to an employment use. Next slide, please. To touch on the policy overview from a provincial standpoint down. So the Planning Act establishes key matters of provincial interest. So that also includes conservation and management of natural resources. The PPS protects mineral aggregate resources and includes the protection of these uses and those that would continue their or which would hinder their expansion. And then from the growth plan perspective, protecting what is valuable is a key overlying objective of the growth plan. So they're ultimately recognizing through the growth plan that the growth projected will require significant amounts of aggregate resources to sustain and support the growth and development that is going to occur. As well as the county Simcoe official plan states that aggregate resources are a vital part of the economic prosperity and long-term economic success in this county. So ultimately, we want to ensure that there's long-term protection of the resources, and that's also mirrored in the township's official plan. Something important to note is, of course, that rehabilitation is required for all aggregate applications. So once the resources are depleted, you do have to rehab it back to existing conditions and usable conditions. So ultimately, extraction and utilization of these materials is supported by planning policy. Next slide, please. The intent of the slide, without getting into details, is just to show some of the level of effort that we've gone to for a history of consultation and engagement. So we started working on this file back in 2019. So through this process, we've worked with the township, the county Simcoe, the MVCEA, Ainley Group, who works on behalf of the township, as well as MECP, MNRF, as well as various other agencies through this application prior to submission and also after submission, to the point that we're at now working through initial comments and doing consultation. So 2 items to highlight is back in April 7th, 2021, we made a council deputation explaining our applications prior to submission. And then we worked with staff up until the time of our application. As well, I wanted to note that we did host a neighborhood information meeting back in May 2021, where we had an open house that night for members of the public to understand the applications prior to submission. And ultimately, where we're at is, of course, we're at the public meeting. So we've been working with staff through initial comments, and we'll continue working with staff and agencies through these comments. Next slide, please. Without getting into details, for the submission, we prepared a number of key studies for the application. So Innovative Planning Solutions prepared these ARA site plans along with a planning justification report. Pinestone Engineering did a stormwater management and drainage brief explaining how flows would be directed and managed on site. Traffic brief was prepared by JD Engineering. Natural environment reports were prepared by Cambium. And Emmett Consultants also prepared archaeological assessments. Cambium did noise and air quality assessments, and Hydro-G and Geotechnico was completed by GEI, as well as GEI completed groundwater monitoring assessment, and legal and topographic information was taken by Rudy Mack. Next slide, please. So touching on the importance of aggregate resources. So we have to recognize that these resources are fixed in place, and it's essential to utilize these resources as they are, again, fixed in place. So with the subject lands being within the township, there's limited areas where aggregate resources exist, so we want to utilize them where they're located. It's important to note as well that when these operations occur, licensing fees are collected by the ministry, and it's distributed at a percentage, approximately 61% of fees to the township. So there is an economic benefit to the township as well. It also, aggregate resources and the operations that have continued around them, they're an economic driver, and they do provide employment opportunities in the industry and for locals in the township. As well as something important to note is that aggregate resources are the foundation of economy and society. Many things that I didn't know about when I started the industry is that aggregates used, of course, to build homes, roads, schools, and hospitals, but also water infiltration systems and also everyday household products that you wouldn't think of. And ultimately, another important point is that with passing a Bill 23 coming down from the province, they're pushing to build 1.5 million new homes the next 10 years. So aggregate in Ontario is going to become more and more important, and we have limited resources, so it's important to utilize those resources. Next slide. So speaking to after use, once we have rehabilitation completed, which is what you're seeing on the top left slide there, the ultimate plan is to create a conceptual draft plan for a employment use. So what we're speaking to now is an industrial subdivisions. So this would follow the land use designation and the intent of the Midhurst secondary plan. So what we would have is, subject to market demand and timeline to exhaust these materials, This subdivision could be phased, so we could work with progressive rehabilitation from the existing license through where operations are going to occur over time. So this would support long-term use of viable lands, as well as creating employment opportunities in the township, and also bringing and retaining retail, office, and industrial related uses, which the employment designation seeks to intend to provide. Next slide, please. So ultimately, what we're seeking through the ministry is a Class A license, which is for a pit above the water table, and that's under the ARA. And then from the lower levels, the province, the county, and the township identifies these lands as containing high quality aggregate materials, and they protect aggregate resources and encourage the extraction of these in close proximity to markets. To support our intent of the applications, we need official plan amendments and zoning bylaw amendments to support the aggregate use. So that would simply add aggregate as the use or industrial extraction under an employment designation. And we are seeking to change the zone from agricultural to an extractive industrial zone. Important to note as well, as I talked about briefly, that it is an interim use. So once the materials are exhausted, the lands will be rehabilitated back to an industrial use, and this would support employment growth in the township. As well as the operator and the applicant, ICs have a long-standing business, and they do desire to maintain township in the township, or maintain operations in the township. That concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions directed my way.
Thank you, Mr. Hunter. I now call upon the moderator to provide the number of people who have registered to ask questions or make comments regarding this application.
Yes, thank you, Chair Thompson. There have been no members of the public who have registered to make an oral submission for this specific application.
Thank you. Are there any other individuals who are present here tonight who would like to make an oral submission regarding this public meeting? Seeing none, are there any members of council who have questions or comments regarding this application? Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Chair Thompson. Just for clarification, can you just let council know, please, what is the closest residential home that is in your area? What that setback would look like? Thank you.
To Chair Thompson, to Councillor Moore, what we're seeking with our application is actually one exception. So, slide. So the zoning requirements for an ME zone requires, let's see here, 15 meters from a property line, 30 meters from a public road, and no closer than 150 meters from a residential dwelling. Ultimately, with our applications, we're putting in place a 30-meter setback. So within that, there's buffering, including a berm and tree retention, and we would be approximately 58 meters to a dwelling, but this dwelling is associated with an MO4 zone use. So that's associated with car mechanic storage and utilization of MO4, which is somewhat of an industrial use on the property, not a traditional residential one. The next closest residential uses would be on the south side of the existing pit on Snow Valley Road. So we'd be a few hundred meters away from any other residential use.
Any other questions? Councillor Fisher?
Through you, Chair Thompson. If you just let us know the lifespan of the pit, I believe you touched on it with the present land and then the new land. What would be the lifespans of the pit?
Through Chair Thompson to Councillor Fisher, we don't have an exact timeline of the existing one. I mean, the proposed one, the existing one has been in place since 1994 license. We expect 5 years. Over time, the demand for aggregate has not been the same way that our clients are experiencing now. This could be a 5, 10, 20-year plan, but that's also a reason why we're putting the emphasis on the after use, so that we would rehab the operations as it occurred and bring back those employment uses, so that over time we would be filling in kind of the intent of that secondary plan.
Through your Chair Thompson, and I drive past the property quite often. I believe that existing house you were talking about, I believe it's operating presently as a mechanic shop, maybe a dealership, but presently. Is that correct?
Sorry, through you, Chair Thompson and Councillor Fisher, that's correct. So if you drive past, it's the northeast corner of our operations. There's automotive storage outside, and you can clearly see that it's used for that. It's got an MO4 zone, including exceptions for that property for that, so.
Thank you for all who participated in this public meeting with respect to the proposed official plan amendment and the zoning bylaw amendment, and for showing an interest in this matter. SU 2024-001, OP 2024-003, and ZB 2024-004, Huron Creek. I will now call upon the clerk to confirm notice of this meeting and the dates in which notice was given.
Notice of this public meeting was mailed on the 21st day of March, 2024 to the owner of the subject lands and to the assessed owners of 99 properties in the township of Springwater within 240 meters of the area to which the proposed amendment would apply, and to all persons and public bodies as prescribed under the Planning Act and its regulations. Notice was posted at the assessed property to which the proposed amendment applies at locations visible from Queen Street West and Beverly Street. Notice was also posted on the township's website.
Thank you, Director Ainsworth. Has the planning department received any correspondence in response to the notice of public meeting?
Correspondence was received from Canada Post in an email dated February 26, 2024, from Hiawatha First Nation in an email dated February 26, 2024, from the Severn Sound Environmental Association in an email dated February 27, 2024, from the Township of Springwater Fire Department in an email dated February 27, 2024, from Bell Canada in an email dated February 27th, 2024, from Enbridge Gas in an email dated March 1st, 2024, from Nation Huron-Wendat in an email dated March 5th, 2024, from Risk Management Official in a memorandum dated March 11th, 2024, from R. Baumeister and Associates in a letter dated March 13th, 2024, from Simcoe County District School Board in a letter dated March 15, 2024, from the County of Simcoe in a letter dated March 19th, from the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority in a preliminary email dated March 22nd, 2024, from Hydro One in an email dated March 25, 2024, from resident K. Jeffrey of 34 Beverly Street in an email dated March 27, 2024, from resident S. Boyles of 11 Drysdale Drive in an email dated April 5th, 2024, from resident T. Crone of 36 Beverly Street in a letter dated April 6, 2024, from residents A. Oting and J. Ook of 40 Beverly Street in an email dated April 6, 2024, from residents R&S Johnson of 32 Beverly Street in an email dated April 7th, 2024, residents B&H Stewart of 46 Beverly Street in an email dated April 7, 2024, resident J. Parcells of 38 Beverly Street in an email dated April 8th, 2024, Ainley Group in a letter dated April 9th, 2024, and residents B and J Hindle of 60 Allenwood Road in an email dated April 9th, 2024. All of the correspondence can be found attached to this evening's agenda.
Thank you, Director Ainsworth. I now call upon Agent Darren Vella of Innovative Planning Solutions to outline the purpose and effect of the zoning bylaw amendment. Mr. Vella.
Good evening, Chair Thompson and members of the committee. My name is Darren Vella, as you've mentioned, and I'm here this evening on behalf of Huron Creek Developments with respect to the proposed applications before you. Next slide, please. So the subject site occupies, excuse me, three parcels that are highlighted here in red. The combined area of all three parcels is 1.61 hectares or 3.97 acres. And the main frontage for the development is 50 meters along Queen Street. The proposed development also contains 16 meters of frontage along Beverly Street, which is a local road that our client is currently in the process of building that subdivision out. As it relates to the lands highlighted in red, the lands are vacant. There are no building and structures located on the property. There is some sporadic grass and treed areas. And it's important to note that the lands are entirely regulated by NVCA due to their proximity to the Wye River. Next slide, please. So just zooming out a little bit more, understanding the context of this site within the Elmville community. So the subject lands are kind of within the northwest area of the community of Elmville. So this main road, Queen Street, is the road that you would take to head further west into the town of Wasaga Beach. And in looking at this area, it is an area that is evolving and really starting to get more of an urban fabric. So there is ongoing developments taking place to the west. There are proposed developments that are planned to the east. And immediately abutting our site, other than residential uses, there's Robinson Park, which is a municipal park that abuts the trail system that is an important recreational asset to the township. Next slide, please. From the planning instrument side of things, looking first at the left, so the township official plan currently designates the property as general commercial, and there's a small portion of the site that's designated urban residential. And then looking at the right slide, the township zoning bylaw, so the majority of the property right now is currently zoned highway commercial exception 19. And there's a very small portion of the property that's zoned residential 1 exception 64. I just want to point out to council and members of the public that the highway commercial exception 19 zone, what that permits over and above the current highway commercial uses, the 19 allows for the construction of a lumber yard with outdoor storage for a lumber yard business on that particular site. Next slide, please. So our development concept looks to integrate and shift the commercial uses that were once contemplated on this site, and in our opinion, make it a little bit more compatible with what is going to be happening within this part of Elmville. So we are proposing the development of 2-story townhouse units, and there are some other slides. It's based on the configuration of the property. There are some other slides where we will zoom in to get council members of the public a better look at the property. But just for simplistic terms, looking from top down, there is an area along Queen Street that is proposed for road widening. So there will be lands dedicated to the municipality for the purposes of a future road widening to expand Queen Street. Leading on to the site, there will be the construction of 1 new road. This road will be constructed as a private road and will be owned by the condominium corporation that will be created in order to maintain the common element areas on the property. So that road runs through the center of the property, and then on either side of that road, the proposal is for 2-story townhouse units, all contained in consistent blocks in order to create a welcoming and properly designed streetscape. As we move through the site, through the residential area, as you proceed south, there is an area where there will be spots for visitor parking for people looking to come and visit residents in this new development, as well as 2 private amenity areas. One of those private amenity areas will be abutting the trail system, and the other private amenity area beside the visitor parking spaces will be also used for that purpose. We have a snow storage area, which we've also identified, and that is also subject to detailed design work that will be used should it snow. Given the winter that we've had this year, there has been some space allocated for snow storage. Finally, looking at the site, in order to ensure there's proper emergency access to the development, it is not proposed that the road connect in with Beverly. That road connection would only be in place for emergency purposes. Should for some reason there be an emergency in this new community, and access from Queen Street is not viable. So once again, that will be an emergency access point only. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, just zooming in a little bit more, you can see that the townhouse units on the left, these are standard townhouse units that currently exist in the Elmvale community, 2 stories wide, 18 to 20, 2 stories tall, 18 to 20 feet wide, made up in blocks of 6 units. So that is a very standard in townhouse product that I think council can relate to. And then looking at the access point again, just to highlight for council members of the community that is an emergency access point only. And that also provides a proper turnaround location, a safe turnaround location, should a vehicle want to make a 3-point turn in the southern portion of the proposed development. Next slide, please. So in summary, this is some highlights of the proposed development. So in total, there's 56 2-story townhouse units. The size of the townhouse units, the end units are a little bit larger than the interior units, but they're all roughly 1,400 square feet. The condominium tenure of the proposed development would see the private road, the visitor parking area, the amenity and snow storage areas all owned by a common element condo corporation, which the 56 unit owners would all own a percentage of. The emergency only access would be located in the southwest corner to Beverly Street. Each unit does possess 2 parking spaces, so there will be a parking space available on the driveway as well as a parking space available in the garage. And then, as I mentioned, there's also 14 available visitor parking spaces on the property. The snow storage and turnaround areas are strategically located to ensure their optimal performance. And the 2 separate amenity areas will be programmed through future Planning Act applications. Should this design be approved by council, we would get into those details through the site plan approval process. The internal private road will also have a sidewalk to ensure that there is safe pedestrian access throughout the site that would be unfettered and undisturbed from vehicles driving along the road. Next slide. So along with our zoning and official plan amendment application, there's also a draft plan of subdivision application. So this is a very technical drawing, but this just gives council an idea as to the parcel fabric that would be created to implement the proposed development and create the 56 townhouse units. Next slide. This is just a zoomed in version, so nothing really here to discuss. Next slide, please. From a application perspective, the official plan amendment application looks to redesignate the lands from urban residential and general commercial and convert the property entirely to urban residential exception, and we'll be eliminating the general commercial designation. And then the zoning will do something very similar, and we'll end up with a residential 3 zone with some site-specific general provisions in order to allow the 56 units to be adequately constructed. Next slide. Looking at some of the site-specific provisions for the townhouse units, we've highlighted the provisions in which there are some slight modifications being requested. In summary, those relate to a slight reduction to lot area and lot frontage for the townhouse units, a slight reduction to the exterior side yard setback. So that is a unit that is located on a corner where it faces 2 roads, one in the front and one on the side of the unit. increasing the lot coverage, so having a larger building footprint for the townhouse units, but still ensuring there's adequate rear yard amenity space. And then the removal of the requirements for privacy yard, as that provision doesn't apply in this sort of development format. Next slide. So these were the studies that were requested by the township through the pre-consultation, and they've been filed with the municipality for review. If there's any members of the public that are interested in reviewing these studies, they are available at the township office. And I believe they could be made available to you if you're interested in having a look at one of those reports. Next slide. Very quick, from a policy perspective, council, I'm sure, is well aware that Elmvale is one of your major strategic areas. It provides a community with full services, being municipal water, municipal sewage, recreational areas. It is one of your communities that you're planning for growth and infill development. The development that we are proposing is an efficient use of the property and provides for greater compatibility with the adjacent development that's being built out to the west. The lands are located in an appropriate location in proximity to existing and approved residential uses, and will allow for additional support of the existing businesses within your downtown by generating a greater population base that those businesses can have as customers. The development is within the township's greenfield density target of 36 residents and jobs combined per hectare. So we are in line with the township's expectations for development density in one of your settlement areas that have full municipal services. Next slide. So in conclusion, the proposal seeks to facilitate the development of 56 residential units in a private condominium townhouse format. The development will contribute to creating a complete community and is located in an urban settlement area known as Elmvale. We will make use of the available existing infrastructure that is there, and it is tended to be used for a development of this nature. And the development that we are proposing provides a range of mix of housing types. These particular housing types would be more on the attainable level, which in this day and age is obviously greatly needed to give housing options for first-time home buyers or people looking for to move out of a rental unit and get into the home ownership program. So in our opinion, the proposal is consistent with all levels of planning policy, and I'm here to answer any questions if there are some from members of council or the public. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Mr. Vella. I now call upon the moderator to provide the number of people who registered to ask questions or make comments regarding this application.
Yes, thank you, Chair Thompson. There are 6 members of the public who have registered to make oral submission this evening. We have one of them who is registered online with an additional 3 attendees who I will call upon to speak once it is their turn, as well as members of the audience. So I'll start off with Joshua and Brooke Kindle. I'll allow them to speak first.
Hi there. Just quickly, we just wanted to say we did submit an email submission with comments regarding this proposed plan. We are not in support of it. We believe it's a misuse of a space that is a green area for our community. This subdivision was sold under the close to nature, minutes to everything else sort of slogan. And by removing what was quoted to be a few sparse trees and some grasslands, I feel would be an inaccurate representation of the land. It is quite full of trees and quite full of different species of grasses, wildflowers and such. And being so close to 2 different greenways, one being the Trans-Canada Trail, obviously the rail trail, and our local park, I think, as well as backing onto some homes who I'm sure are not quite happy about the view changing from a lovely trail to the back ends of some condo buildings. Just in summary, basically, we find it's a missed opportunity for the residential R1 that should have been placed on Beverly Street, and then a misuse of the current green space that we have there. I mean, this area is proportionally mostly farmland, so flat. We don't have a lot of trees around this subdivision, and that's what drew us to this area, just that close to nature feel. We're able to take our small family out for a walk on that trail and enjoy the trees and watch all the birds and enjoy what nature has to offer so close to our built home. And proposing to rip that down, although it seems like a lovely idea to integrate more of that mixed housing into our Elmvale subdivision, I do not believe that parcel of land that has been selected in this matter is the appropriate one. I have a particular feeling I'm probably not alone on this in the subdivision, but I would like to thank you for giving us the opportunity to just speak there, and please see our letter for our further comments of a more in-depth detail how we feel. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to allow Susan Boyles to speak.
Thank you very much. Through the chair and council, I live in Elmvale Village, and I had a question that I sent in. First of all, I was a little surprised at the parcel of land that was being targeted because there was a vacant parcel of land already in front of our front street in Elmvale Village. And I understand that that's going to be townhome use proposed as well. But anyway, here's my question. There's a pedestrian pathway along the east fence of our stormwater pond. And there's also a row of young maple trees that have been planted along the east side of that path. And it looks like the pathway and the maple trees parallel part of the proposed townhome construction area. Can anyone confirm that the proposed development won't impinge on or remove or destroy the path and the aligning maple trees?
Mr. Vella?
Thank you, Chair Chapman. I'd be more than happy to answer that question. So there is no proposed development or site alteration that would be taking place off of this property, Susan. So that particular stormwater management pond is now owned and maintained by the township. It was dedicated to the township when the Elmvale Village subdivision was constructed. And any new development is not permitted to alter any property that they do not own. So we will not be proposing any sort of changes on land that is not owned by Huron Creek Developments. So that area is not proposed for any sort of change.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Vella. Back to the moderator for more comments or questions.
Thank you, Chair Thompson. I'm going to continue to move down the list. I will allow Jackie Radford to speak. Please also state your address for the record.
Hi, sorry, that was an accident.
Not a problem. I'll now allow Jay Myung to speak. And as well, please state your address for the record.
Hi, this is Amanda Otting, talking on behalf of the owner of 40 Beverly Street. So like other adjacent homeowners, we are opposed to this development. As much as we support the growth of Elmvale communities, then we believe that this is the wrong land to be, that we picked the wrong land. The rationales for our opposition is like all homeowners who bought from Huron Creek and Amelia Homes paid an extra money premium up to $10,000 for the lot adjacent to the affected land, with the expectation that the natural privacy, the trees would remain. So I'm concerned that there will be a legal implication if we proceed with this development. The proposed land is quite small to accommodate 56 townhomes, and how many people are going to live in each townhome, which can lead to overcrowding and noise pollution, and this will result in breach of quiet enjoyment for adjacent homeowners in our communities. And the development will negatively impact the environment through the destruction of a wetland, wildlife habitats, and the ecosystems. And there are no doubts that people in our subdivision area really make use of this adjacent Trans-Canada Trail to exercise, play with their kids, de-stress, and walk their dogs. And the new development will result in much less greens and nature spaces for our subdivision area, which can negatively impact the mental and physical well-being of our communities. And also the Trans-Canada Trail adjacent to proposed new development is utilized heavily by snowmobiles during a snowy day. And a majority of these riders do not abide to the 50 kilometers posted speed. So I'm concerned that the new proposed development will also pose a particular safety threat to the children and dogs living right next to the trail. And Elmvale fosters an image of having the purest drinking water in the world, wetlands, nature spaces, and eco-filtering system. And the proposed development of high-density housing will destroy this town image. As a result, in the future, people might be less attracted to live and settle in this beautiful town. And the removal of the vegetation will degrade the walking ambience from a nature walk to a sidewalk. And this certainly doesn't maintain the Trans-Canada Trail image as a nature walk. And yeah, that's hopefully the township will consider our points of view and our grievance. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Otting, and back to Moderator Mordo for other comments or questions.
Thank you, Chair Thompson. There are no additional members of the public online who have registered to speak. However, there may be attendees in the audience. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other individuals who are present here tonight who would like to make an oral submission regarding this public meeting?
Can I ask questions now?
Your safety committee on that. Hi, I'm Dan Thompson. I live at 44 Beverly. I've got a couple of questions. I forgot your name, sir. One, what are we doing to prevent that emergency access to Beverly Street from it resulting in really just nothing but a through road from Queen Street right through? What kind of restrictions are we putting in?
Chair Chapman, you want me to just directly respond?
Please, yes, to Mr. Vella.
Okay. Good evening, sir. So there's a number of different ways that access would be restricted. The most common, now this really depends on the township once we get to the point where if this road is in fact approved in this configuration, the standard would be knockdown bollards. So there would be bollards installed that would prevent vehicle access from driving through there. But obviously, if there was a fire truck, the fire truck would be able to move those bollards over and allow that emergency access point to be utilized.
Okay, thank you. The amenity areas on any of the drawings I've seen, they're just shown in green. And I gather from what you've said, they will be up to the condo owners to decide how they're going to use that those amenities. Is that correct?
Mr. Vella?
Thank you, Chair Chairman. Apologize for jumping in a little quick there. So those amenity areas will be planned before the condominium board actually gets created. So those areas do get planned at the detailed design process with the township.
Okay, so the township ultimately has control over what they're going to be used for. Do we have any ideas what they're going to be used for?
The township doesn't ultimately own those properties, sir, but the township is interested in understanding how they will be utilized with the purpose of ensuring that they're a benefit to the residents that live in that community. So,
So
for
what you're
example,
telling, sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to give you an example. So one of the areas, there could be a small playground area. There could be a pickleball court installed. There could be a basketball court installed. There's a number of different recreational options. There could be a winter ice rink put in there. But all of those uses on those properties would actually be maintained and paid for by the 56 unit townhouse owners, not the general taxpayer.
Mr. Thompson, another question?
Oh, yes. Okay, you mentioned basketball court. Any concerns that the noise next kids playing basketball next to my house?
Mr. Vella?
So that's just an example, sir. I'm not saying that there is a basketball court going there. I was just giving you an example just so you had a sense as to the types of different recreational uses that are possible, but there is no plan for a basketball court there right now. I can tell you that.
Okay, so you're telling me my council members here will protect me against that kind of thing. Is that what you're telling me?
I'm not sure that's a question for
Oh,
Mr. Vella. Just a question to the planning department. So that comment has come up, ice rinks and basketball courts. I'm sure that would have to go through the proper planning procedure. There'd be restrictions on lighting. There'd be noise to take into consideration before anything like that was approved. Am I correct?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, you are correct. There is a planning process to go through, and there's two asks before us. The first ask is a change of use. So to change the use from commercial to residential. And then we get, if they pass that hurdle, then it gets into detailed design. And that's the nature of the question before us. If it is approved as residential, then what would it look like at the end of the day? So there would be some analysis that staff would do. We would be speaking to the Parks and Facilities staff to get some opinions on what that park or parkette could look like at the end of the day, and feed that back to the developer for suggestions and design. At the end of the day, there would be a recommendation report coming back to council, which would be a public document, so it would be shared with the public. And certainly the public can reach out to planning staff at any time, and we're happy to answer questions as this progresses.
So what would that process for a resident be to reach out the planning department? Just how would they do that?
There are multiple ways. On the notice of public meeting, there was a contact for the planner assigned to the file. I believe it's Ms. Belcourt beside me here. They could call into the general phone number, the township phone line, and ask for the planning department, and that query would be redirected to somebody on staff who could answer. And they could, I think our emails are available on the town website as well. So they can reach out to anybody, but the query will get directed to the right person in the department.
Thank you. Does that answer your questions, Mr. Thompson?
Yes, yes, that does. Now maybe I'll leave this next comment for later. Thank you.
And I really do like your last name.
We'll see who wears it the best.
Thank you. The next speaker registered is Terry Crones.
Thank you. After listening to the presenters this evening, even on the issue that doesn't relate to us, I'm aware that in order to speak cohesively on this subject, I probably have to have an understanding of the Golden Horseshoe Plan, the Elmdale Settlement Area Plan, the Provincial Policy, Bill 23, and the Township of Springwater Plan, because clearly there are references to all of these. And in the limited time given to us to prepare for tonight's meeting, it would be impossible to grasp the information in all of these different plans. I'm aware that provincially and nationally that housing is an issue in our country and that we need to explore options that perhaps differ from the ones that we've used in the past. But I would like to bring our attention back to the fact that there are 56 proposed townhomes for a very, very tiny area. If you go back to the map that was brought up on slide 2 or 3, you'll see that the property comes to a point and that there are townhouses in almost every single area. And I wonder, or I'll throw out to you folks, is that really in keeping with the land use that is designated for this area? It seems to be a departure to me. I'm new to this area, but when I drive around, I don't see many developments that look like that on such a tiny, tight area that's adjacent to the Trans-Canada Trail. The snowmobiles will literally drive by the front door of those townhomes, which is an interesting choice for land use. So I really urge, I know that Councillor Garwood has walked the property. I would urge all of you folks to put boots on. It's marshy and wet, and actually go out and look at it, because it looks different than the architectural drawings. When you step outside and you see this very, very tight corridor, it reminds me of development in Toronto. Not in, and even not even in Barrie, really, but certainly not out here. So that's the first consideration I'd like you to listen to. The second is, I haven't heard much, and this is a question about the environmental impact. So what studies have been done? I did receive from the Planning Commission a number of PDF files, and I tried to look at all of them on different studies that have been undertaken, but I didn't see much addressing the environmental issues. And as was mentioned by another speaker, that land is teeming with birds and grasses and frogs and turtles and species. So what has been done in that area? That's my question.
That's a question for Mr. Bella.
It is, I'm sorry. Yes, it is.
Mr. Bella?
Thank you and good evening, ma'am. So I pointed out through my presentation the list of studies that the township requested. So there was an environmental study requested by the township. So if you are interested in reading that report, it's available at the township office through the planning department.
Are there any species that are at risk that are currently on that land?
Mr. Bella?
That question, unfortunately, I don't have an answer for you, ma'am.
Okay.
And it's not because I don't want to answer it. It's because unfortunately in this circumstance, the individual that is managing this file in our office actually was double booked for a public meeting tonight. And so I'm filling in for him. We obviously want to make sure that there's representation this evening. So it's not that I'm trying not to answer your question. I just don't want to give you the wrong information.
I think Planner Belcourt may be able to help us with an answer to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Planner Belcourt, could you also assist? Ms. Crone had some concern about timelines, that this was being rushed through. Could you give the residents some kind of idea as to how much time they actually have to give input and to read all these studies and to be in touch with our planning department in this process?
Absolutely. Thank you, Chair Thompson, through you to the rest of council and the public. I'll start with the environmental question. So as Mr. Vella stated, there were a number of studies required and provided. I believe, Ms. Crone, we've been in contact this week and I've provided you with those studies. Namely, there was a flood plain study, if I'm quoting that correctly, that was completed, and that was through discussions, if memory serves me well, with the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority. The property is regulated within the floodplain of the Wye River, as is a great deal of Elmville and probably a majority of the Huron Creek or the Elmville Village subdivision that you live in. So there were works done through that. The Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority has also been circulated on this application with all the studies that you also received. We have not received formal comments from them. At this point, we've only received preliminary comments that stated that they will be providing comments. So those will come into more detail. And through the approval process, we'll continue the conversations with Mr. Bell and his team and the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority to ensure that any environmental sensitivities or hazards are discussed and addressed appropriately. So with that said, I'll get into the planning process. So I recognize that it is a short time frame to provide comments in, and you can't necessarily review all of those detailed and technical studies in that time. However, the Planning Act sets out specific timelines that the township does need to process applications as well. And with that, it requires a minimum of 20 days notice, which was what was provided for this public meeting. With that said, a decision is not, or a recommendation is not before council this evening for their consideration. There are some things that will need to be addressed before staff is in a position to make such recommendation, including response from the applicant and agent on all the comments received tonight, not only from the public, but technical comments from our engineering team, the Conservation Authority, that kind of thing. I think that outlines everything.
I also want to bring us back to the issue of what was promised to the people that bought the lots and the houses. I'm not an original owner, so I did not deal with the initial developer. I think other people may comment on that tonight, but it concerns me that an offer was made. These are premium lots. They'll back onto permanent green space to have 2 years later a development of 56 townhouses come in. I hesitate to use the word duplicitous, but it comes to mind. We'll offer you this, you buy, you live, and well, now we're going to change it. And we don't just have homes back there, but we have 56 homes that will have 112 cars. I think when you walk the land, you will be surprised at how all that will fit together. So that concludes what I have to say. And thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next registered speaker is Kimberly Jeffrey. Is Kimberly Jeffrey with us this evening? No. Thank you. The next speaker on the list is Rosalind Johnston. Would Rosalind be here? Thank you. That concludes the list of persons who pre-registered. Chair Thompson, if I could ask for you to request additional speakers.
Are there any other individuals who are present here tonight who would like to make an oral submission regarding this public meeting?
Yes, I was registered.
Mr. Thompson.
That's okay.
Might need stronger. Okay, just to introduce myself, Dan Thompson. I live at 44 Beverly Street. That property borders the emergency access of this or the emergency for the condos, as well as adjacent to the condo complex. And of course, I think you know what's coming next. I object. Okay. I'm going to take a little different approach to this, and some of it might not favor the council so well, but don't take offense, because I don't know any of you people, and I'm sure you do a good job. Okay? Approach I'm going to take is the process. This process is seriously flawed. Now, based on the correspondence I've been able to look at, I've kind of determined that Huron Creek has been working on this for at least 2 years. So I'm assuming, sometimes in 2 years, they've been lobbying you people. I'm guessing. That's how I would do it if I was a businessman. Okay, and what kind of notice did we get? The residents of that community. What? 20 days? 20 days, apparently. Okay, this is obviously a very complex situation. How many reports? Never mind.
Mr. Thompson, if you could assist me is when you ask a question,
Oh,
it
I'm
should,
sorry.
the
Yes.
question should be through me
Oh, okay.
to an
I'm sorry.
individual.
I'm not
Alright?
used to this. I am sorry. I'm
Just-
sorry.
If you want to make a comment or a statement, that's fine, but if you are asking a question and you want an answer, that's,
Okay, I get it.
we want to be as helpful as
Understood.
possible.
Understood. Okay, so anyway, we all know there's numerous studies that, you know, so to ask the residents of this particular issue to comprehend, study it, and be able to lobby effectively, I think we should be offered a similar amount of time that is taken Huron Creek. I think that would only be fair. And even speaking of the notice, the first notice that we had an inkling of this was the signs that were posted. Well, we had no idea what it was about. We knew they were developing east on the trail, but when people started the notice, myself included, I knew that lot next to me was going to be an emergency access. I understood that, but I was thinking it was going to be to access the development that was going on the other side of the trail. And even after this notice, other people thought, oh, other side of the trail or at the planned ones out on Queen Street. So even the notice, we still didn't know. So until we got the written notice, we had no idea what was going on. I'm not sure how the council can defend that process, but I'm just here to point it out. Now, this doesn't quite fit with this part of my presentation, but for some reason I got to know about the wetlands, habitat and Trans-Canada Trail. You know, oh, I know what it is. We weren't aware that was going to be destroyed. Don't you think we should have more time to defend that, the habitats of those properties, of that land? You know, the birds, turtles, etc. And I really question the reports I looked. There's some mischaracterizations of that property, as was noted previously. One of the reports I read, no wetlands on this property. I got a question. How can the property, when I look out my back window on the forest floor, there is a small forest there, so there's more than just a few trees. There's a forest floor there that will be removed for the amenities. That forest floor never loses surface water. There's always surface water on that. That's not a wetland. There's a grassy area, or excuse me, a marshy area in behind my neighbors. One neighbor has told me that all he has to do is put one shovel down into that marshy area at his property line, and it exposes water. So don't we think that's a mischaracterization by not mentioning there is a wetland there? Sorry if I'm getting animated, but when I care about something, I get that way. Now, given that we haven't had sufficient notice, and given that this is such a, I would say, controversial issue, removing wetlands, I recommend that any decision on this matter be postponed until after the next election. That would allow the voters to have a voice in this. Another observation, the way I look at this process. Given that the situation here is we have many people who bought into the subdivision next to this property. You know, when they bought into that subdivision, they put a trust into this council to protect their interests based on subdivision plans that they were buying into. I looked it over very carefully because I was paying $10,000 for that nice street view. I bought from Huron Creek. Wonder what they're like as far as integrity. I don't know. Anyway, I bought and I did my due diligence. I looked at that's landlocked. Oh, perfect place to leave as a park, as a natural area. I guess that's what's being happening. I think I did my due diligence. Apparently I didn't. So my trust, if this goes through, my trust, everybody who lives in that subdivision will be violated if this council approves this amendment. Now, I recognize that subdivision amendments are required on occasion. But generally, that would be maybe a subdivision that's been around for many years. You know, cultures change, technologies change, things have changed in the community, and it requires a change, an amendment. Absolutely. Let's do that. But how can we justify this amendment to a subdivision in its infancy? In its infancy. How can we justify this? I don't think we can. Part of this a breach of trust. Let's take a look at Huron Creek versus homeowner. Huron Creek obviously stands to make windfall profits on a piece of property that couldn't be built on, only if they get this amendment. And what happens to the homeowner's value in that subdivision? We don't have to guess, do we? So while we're losing equity, Huron Creek is gaining it, and this all seems to be supported by the council who's voted in to represent the residents, not Huron Creek. You know, side note, once Huron Creek's done building in this community, they'll be gone with all those profits too. Now I have some requests. I obviously request that this amendment be declined. If the amendment is to be passed, the decision must be postponed until the next election. If the amendment is not declined, I'm requesting the subdivision file be provided for scrutiny. It is expected that it will contain the reasons the subject land was not built on previously or not planned to be built on. I request that the council develop a more transparent process, given the public views that politics is corrupt, a transparent process could improve this image. I'm requesting that prior to approval, I have site meetings with relevant township analysts who can clarify how the negative impacts listed in my written submission, which I've also put one in, submission will be addressed. I am requesting that prior to a decision, the council develop and provide reports to residents of the Elmville community. I'm requesting details indicating why passing this amendment is best represents the community interests. I am requesting details indicating all meetings that have transpired with Huron Creek during the development of this condo project. I am requesting details indicating what alternative locations have been looked at for the development of these condos. I'm asking for details of what efforts have been made to verify the integrity and or bias encompassed in the reports provided by by Huron Creek. We've already noticed something that looks fishy. You know, I recognize the need for high density housing. Absolutely, I support it. We all have to. But this isn't the land that it should be done on. I'd like to know what suitable areas have been looked at. Maybe you've already asked for that, but no, and one idea I come up with, and I'd like to work with you people on maybe some other ideas. I would really love the opportunity. I want to be a contributor to this, my new community. But what I just wondered, you know, an option would be, I don't know how many of these estate subdivisions are being developed or looked at being developed in Springwater Township, sorry. You know, but maybe we should look at reducing the lot sizes, make a maximum lot size, reducing those, the size of those, and utilize those areas for condos, or maybe subdivisions like mine that's already started, properties that haven't been purchased. Maybe we should freaking combine those and make them into condos. I'm pretty sure we know what kind of financial clout would come back at us, eh? Okay, I'm gonna start winding this thing down here. Unless council can give me convincing reasons, irrefutable reasons that this condo should, development should go through, I intend to vigorously oppose it to whatever limits I can. I don't have unlimited funds, but I do have a lot of access to social media, interest groups, GoFundMe maybe. I have all those, you know, I have access to those, and there's a few people in the community that are being affected, might chip in as well, and I won't stop. Basically, I'm done here, except I'd like the hope that council takes my last comments as both a threat and a promise. Because that makes me,
Sorry, just.
Point of order, Chair. I don't feel that it's appropriate that a member of the public comes into this chamber and offers a verbal threat.
that is
to
not a
council.
threat. You didn't let me finish my, my statement. That would convince me that you guys have been listening.
Well, I assure you, Mr. Thompson, we are listening and,
And I did not mean it as a threat. I'm sorry, you know, that was not.
apology accepted.
Okay.
Thank you.
At any rate, thank you for your time, and I hope I have an opportunity to work with council on this issue and others. I want to be contributing members of my new community. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other individuals who are present here tonight who would like to make an oral submission regarding this public meeting? You could state your name and address for the clerk.
Good evening. My name is John Parcells. I'm here with my wife Claudia. We reside at 38 Beverly Street in Elmville, Ontario. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity for speaking this evening and expressing our concerns. We initially purchased our property in 2016 from Amelia Homes. When we were purchasing our home, trying to choose a lot, we were advised that the lot that we ended up eventually purchasing was protected lands but behind our property. And we paid a premium to ensure that we got that lot that we chose with the understanding that it would not be developed behind. Later on, when the township was doing the grade work for our property, they put a swale that runs across our property. So my home backs onto the trail. So the rear of my home backs to the east. So this swale runs north-south. And what the township told me was this swale prevents and reduces water runoff into the existing wetlands that are behind our home. So this swale limits what we can do to develop our property. And knowing that, we accepted that because we chose that property and we chose the wetlands to protect it. And so we live with the swale. Is it perfect? No, but you get what you get, and that was our choice, and we went into it willingly. We also looked at building an in-ground pool, develop our backyard. The township told us we were unable to develop an in-ground pool due to the water table being so high. We were prevented from doing so. Once again, we accepted that with the understanding that we had a beautiful backyard and we backed onto a trail, which we chose to do so. For the corporation to say that it's not a wetland, you have to get out there and walk it. It's totally wet. Underneath the sod, there's bubbling water. It's like the Beverly Hillbillies episode. If you dig down, it comes up. There's a free flowing artesian well that's out there that runs nonstop. I'm not here to be arrogant enough to say that shut the development down. I'm saying reduce it. The area right on 92 is a flat land. It's a square parcel. It would be prime building area, but this wetlands that's in a triangle shape, it's no good for anyone. It's not big enough for what they've proposed. I just think it's going to be hurtful for everyone in the community. Obviously, we're emotionally upset about it. And we hope council will at least listen to our concerns and come to a resolution that's good for both the developer and the community. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Planner Belcourt, could Could you make a comment about this wetland concern? As I think the NVCA will have something to say about this in the end. Am I correct?
Thank you, Chair Thompson. Through you to council and the public, you are correct. The MVCA will provide comments if there are any environmental features or hazards associated with the property. I'm not sure if Mr. Vella can comment further on if there is a wetland on the property. I am not aware of if there is an unevaluated or evaluated wetland off the top of my head this evening.
Mr. Vella?
Thank you, Chair. No, I'm also not aware of this land being identified through any sort of provincial mapping, local mapping as containing a wetland feature. So I'm not personally aware of that either.
And to Director Heron, just a question. I assume the public would have access to the NVCA and would be able to contact them and express their concerns both verbally and in written form, and they would have that ability to do that. Am I correct?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. They would indeed. They could, if they have comments, direct the comments to the planning department, and we will fairly redirect them to the other authorities, including the NVCA. If I could maybe speak to the process a little bit for the benefit of the public. There's been comments about the shortness of the duration of notice, and we act at the direction of provincial legislation, and it's unfortunate, but the province pretty much dictates the timelines for planning approvals. So that 20 days notice is right in the Planning Act, and we're required to enforce that. But having said that, it's important to note that this meeting is for information gathering. There's no decisions being made. And the planning department, what we're responsible for at this stage of the game is to make sure that all information gets gathered and assembled and taken seriously in terms of a forward-looking decision. So again, there's no decisions being made here. And I don't know if you've noticed, but staff are taking furious notes as you speak. So we're trying to make sure that every comment that is made is duly recorded, not just on the recording of the meeting itself, the electronic recording. And our goal is to work with the developer to get the information we need, with outside agencies, including the NVCA, to get the information we need, and eventually report back to council in a public format with whatever direction is taken here. And I'll add one last thing and then I'll shut up. If the public has any questions on the process as we proceed through, they can contact us at any time and we will answer questions. And if we don't have the answers to the questions, certainly share what we do know and try to find the answer for you. We try to keep it as open a process as we possibly can up until the time period where a decision could be or should be rendered. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Thank you, Director Heron. Are there any other individuals who are present here tonight who would like to make an oral submission regarding the public meeting? Okay. Sure. Yeah.
Thank you. I'll keep it very short. I just wanted to indicate that I'm a neighbor to John that just spoke. We share the swale as well, and it fills with water every rainfall. It's a little pond for a couple of days, so it prevents the water from going back down into what we're all concerned about. I also want to indicate, and I'm not sure this is the right term, but my neighbor to the other side, I'm told, and I hear it, has an artesian well, and you hear the water come up. It's the most interesting phenomenon to hear water come out of the ground about every 45 minutes. This is a very wet area. So I just wanted to convey that to you and to thank the planning department. They've been very cooperative, but I was in touch with the Nottawasaga Conservation Area. They did not get back to me. So, but again, it's pretty short timeline, so maybe they will, but we haven't received anything from them. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, before we go to council for comments, one question to Mr. Vella. One of the things that came up was access to the Trans-Canada Trail for these residents. Could you put the picture back up of where this emergency exit is? Could we see that, Clerk Ainsworth? Is that? And can you explain to us and them how they're going to continue to have access to this trail if and when this development goes forward?
Thank you. I'm not sure who put that up, but thanks for that. And to Chair Thompson. So you can see that there is a municipal road that crosses over the trail, and that is a public road through which residents obviously have access over because it's a municipal road. So if there are residents that are crossing through this private piece of property to get to that trail, that's obviously not the formal way that the trail access should be done, because you're obviously walking over private property. So there is no intent for their access point to change, obviously because they're getting access through that municipal road right of way. That would be like in the southeast corner. I don't have the pointer on the screen, so I can't really. It'd be right there. Thank you. So that is outside of the area in red.
Okay, go ahead.
Once again, this gentleman's making comments on a property that he's obviously never been to. The road that he's referring to doesn't exist. On the mapping system, it exists, but the road does not exist. So for this company to make assumptions that people can do certain things, maybe get up and see what you're talking about prior to making reports and making assumptions, because those roads do not exist. The way to the trail is through that wetlands and going out onto 92 and going further around. Maybe one day that road will go through and exist, but right now it does not.
Mayor Coughlin?
Thank you, and through you, Chair. So what I'm understanding is currently the existing, if you could put that back up. So right now the existing community is accessing the trail across private property?
No, you can't go across the wetlands to get there. You have to go, okay, if you look at the access road that's going to come out onto Beverly, follow that cursor, go further towards 92, right through there. That's where you back out through to 92, right on that trail and out through the park and in behind. So it is quite a walk to get to there, but for easy access right here, this road here, Allenwood, further to the south, that does not even exist at this point. If you could get to the trail from the back of my home, it would be quite easy, but you need hip waders to get across the wetlands. It's just not feasible.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do any members of council have any questions or comments regarding the application? Councillor Fisher.
Thank you. Just a comment, and frankly, a lot of what I was going to say was covered by Director Heron. This is meant to be transparent. It is meant to get the public's input. And I will say this is actually a very good example of why we do that, because myself, I haven't walked the property, but having your anecdotal experiences of what is going on there, I think is very helpful for us in viewing this, because you live there, we don't. So I think that's very important. And I can certainly see on top of that, 56 residences with presumably 3 to 4 people in each residence, you're adding a few hundred residents to that area, right? So I think one of you mentioned that it doesn't really fit the fabric of what the community is. So I do understand the need. I really do understand the need for increased housing. We hear about it all the time, but that is important to to understand that. So I think a lot of your comments are very valid and insightful. I know one of the questions that was asked was about the access road and how that would be regulated. But I think, development is good, but sometimes we have these meetings to maybe take a look through a different lens and see if that property were to be developed, what would it look like? Is this necessarily the route they want to go down? So I just want you to know that it's certainly not rushed through the process. Maybe it feels from somebody from the public we actually do invite your comments because they are very valid. So I just don't want anyone to feel that way.
Councillor Garwood?
Thank you, Chair Thompson. And first off, I'd like to thank all of the Elmville residents here tonight and everyone that's come out this evening. As mentioned earlier on, I did have the opportunity actually today to walk the space. Just to clarify, I walked on the trail. I did not walk on private property. But I can definitely echo the concerns heard from folks. It's a beautiful space. I know it well. I've actually spent a lot of time in Elmville Village over the last year and a half, speaking with a lot of residents related to other concerns. So I've got to know you folks quite well. When hearing the concerns this evening, just so you are aware, I have read through all of the comments that were submitted and I've gone through the presentation in detail. I really see three buckets or three categories of concerns, and that's environmental, privacy, and security. And I could be wrong on that, and I'm probably missing a few, but if I was to summarize, that's really what I see here. I have actually earlier today, I had the opportunity to give the planner on file, as Mr. Vela had indicated, Mr. Barker. I gave him a call to also echo the concerns that were brought forth through the comments, through the conversations I've had leading up to this meeting with a few of you, and we had that conversation. I think there should be some clarity again. I know it's been mentioned a few times, but we are not deciding on anything tonight. We are here for information purposes. I think this is a great opportunity for you to meet council and council to also meet the residents, and also know that I'm always happy to have these conversations. It doesn't have to be in this building. I can come to your homes. I've spent a lot of time in there, and I'm happy to have those conversations. I do have a few questions tonight, Chair. I will start with one, and I will propose that one to Mr. Vela directly. So through yourself, Chair, Mr. Vela, can you provide a overall timeline on this proposed development for the residents that are in the room and maybe the ones that are online and watching from home as well? I think that might provide some clarity, not going backwards, but moving forwards. Where are things projected to go in a perfect world?
Mr. Vela?
Thank you, Chair Thompson, through to Councillor Garwood. So that's an extremely difficult question to answer, Councillor Garwood. I mean, there's so many factors that go into determining timing. So if we were to assume this project would be approved, and I really don't want to say that, understanding the concerns we're hearing from the residents today, but if let's hypothetically say, like you said, there's no decision being made here tonight, but if this application were to be approved, what happens following that is the applicant/developer then enters into a detailed design process with the municipality, and ultimately it ends up with the owner signing a subdivision agreement. So once that subdivision agreement is signed, that then allows site alteration to commence on the property and servicing to commence. If we look at the community that the residents are living in today, the ones that are expressing concern here, that subdivision, there was a considerable amount of time that was needed through the servicing process to ensure that the soil was adequate for construction to commence. So there was soil brought on site. That soil had to sit there for a year before they could actually build roads. It was a very intensive and very scheduled development process. So that servicing took several years in order for that subdivision to be at a stage where homes could actually start to be constructed. So this is an extremely difficult question to answer, but I can say it would be multiple years before any sort of development would be happening on that property should this be approved by the township.
Counselor Garwood, then Counselor Fisher.
Thank you, Chair Thompson, and thank you, Mr. Vella, for answering the question. I know it's a tough one to answer, but I know it's one that the residents have asked and the residents want that information. So I think that's important to definitely put out there. Moving a bit forward in regards to the density. So respecting that you discussed that during your presentation and you did highlight that specifically. And I also had this conversation with Mr. Barker earlier on today as well around density. But can you highlight for those in attendance and again, those online, the 56 proposed townhomes and where that sits in regards to density and how that density calculation is determined? Understand there's been high density, medium density, low density thrown around. Also, quite a few of the comments that have been submitted were related to this. So can you provide, from your perspective, a bit more information on that as well? Thank you.
Through Chair Thompson to Councillor Garwood. With respect to density, we're dealing with the developable portion of this property is rectangular in shape. So naturally what we're accomplishing here is a road down the middle of the property and units being located on either side of the road. So looking and feeling, driving through this new community, if it gets approved, it will be very, very similar to the townhouses that are actually approved in the Elmvale Village subdivision that have yet to be built along Queen Street. So the look and feel of this area, of this new 56 unit development will be very, very similar to what is already approved within walking distance to this site. So we are not, with this application, pushing any sort of density limits. We're not setting new precedents. We're not setting new density standards in the municipality. This has been a very, very rational and very, very pragmatic approach in terms of ensuring compatibility is being completed between this site and Elmvale Village.
Councillor Fisher and Mayor Coughlin. Mayor Coughlin.
Thank you, Chair Thompson. I just have a couple questions for clarification, and I do apologize for not asking these in advance because they were sparked by comments made this evening. It pertains to the existing use, the permitted uses and the designation of the land in question. Heard it tonight being referred to as wetlands, and I just want to make it evidently clear to those who might be watching that what this council is being asked to contemplate and what staff are asked to contemplate while the land is wet, what designation and zoning is on that land today?
Planner Belcourt.
Thank you, Chair Thompson. Through you to Mayor Coughlin. That's a great question. The property currently is designated, primarily the larger piece is designated general commercial under the township's official plan, and it is zoned highway commercial exception 19. As Mr. Vella noted, the exception 19 adds an additional permitted use of being, I believe, a lumber yard. I don't have the direct phrasing in front of me, but I believe that's what is quoted. So in addition to the standard permitted uses, a lumber yard is also permitted. Those standard permitted uses are listed in the township's zoning bylaw, and I don't have that in front of me currently. But just to give you a feel of what those types of uses could be off the top of my head, do include motor vehicle related services, so such as a gas station, motor vehicle repair garage, those types of uses. There may be consideration for drive-through restaurants, accessory to those types of uses, that kind of thing. So that's a very high level that obviously does not detail all the uses that could be on that site. If somebody came in today with an application for, or a proposal for one of those permitted uses, they would be going through a site plan process, which is not a public process under the Planning Act. And that would just be looking at things like detailed design.
Follow on, Mayor Coughlin.
Thank you. And for clarification, just because I recall this maybe 8 or 9 years ago when there was a debate between whether it should be residential or commercial and what the commercial use should be on it. Do we know approximately how long this property has been within the settlement area, but also how long has that designation and zoning been in place?
Planner Belcourt.
Thank you, Chair Thompson, through you to Mayor Coughlin. I don't have that exact number in front of me. I can say from my history and experience at Springwater being over 8 years now, it has not changed zoning or designation in that time.
Last comment, Mayor Coughlin.
Thank you. And I want to provide my empathy to members of the public. We've seen this with a few developments that have happened across the township from Hillsdale, all the north, south, east, and west. And often at times where there's real estate transactions taking place, often the use of the land that is currently vacant, it could be a giant cornfield or a beautiful, whichever, and it's sold to people as that. And I think it's extremely unfortunate when that happens, because then like you said, that transaction's done and you move on, and then you're sitting here thinking that the township went and changed something without even telling you it was changed. And this zoning has been in place at the same time that the subdivision you're living in, when those changes happened, this change would have happened. And I do apologize, I don't have the exact year. But I want to make very clear to you that there hasn't been any meetings that you weren't invited to that have changed the use of that land since you have become an owner there. That land that is where it is it was designated, it was chose at the council of the day to be used for commercial use or a gas station or those options. So this isn't, and I do apologize, and it's often hard to say it out loud, this isn't new. This has always been part of the plan. And I do empathize though that misinformation has been presented to you, because now you're trying to protect something. And I know that this sounds horrible. It's trying to protect something that doesn't exist. This is not a county forest. This is not designated open lands or wetlands. This is designated for commercial use, and that was the intent within the settlement area. So I do apologize that that's the experience that you're having, and I hope that we can work with the consulting company to put something in place. But I tell you, I hear from residents in the area all the time that we need mixed use housing. We don't have anything for people to start off in or downsize into. So I do apologize that the words that are coming out of my mouth are not something you want to hear, but I just wanted to make sure that we reiterate that was the intended use for this property.
We have Councillor Garwood and then Councillor Fisher.
Thank you, Chair Thompson. Just looking back through on the comments that were submitted through the chair to Planner Belcourt, can you please indicate not necessarily a timeline, but the process for when the residents who did submit inquiries will receive a response on those, whether that be from staff or the developer or the planner supporting the developer?
Planner Belcourt.
Thank you, Chair Thompson, through you to Councillor Garwood. So I don't have an exact timeline at this point. However, response will be required from the developer's agent to all comments received. As mentioned earlier, that includes both public and technical comments. Those comments will come to the planning department. When staff is prepared to make recommendation, response to those comments will be detailed in that recommendation report for council's consideration. The developer is typically not obligated to provide direct response to each individual, but they will provide response to the township.
Councillor Fisher.
Through you to, I'm guessing the planning department, just for my own clarification, the present development is not the same developer as the one being proposed, right? They're two different developers.
Planner Belcourt.
Thank you, Chair Thompson. Through you to Councillor Fisher. The original developer of the Elmville Village subdivision was Amelia Homes or Dan Gallo. That Amelia Homes sold the project or properties to Huron Creek. Huron Creek is the current developer of the Elmville Village Phase 1 lands, as well as the Phase 2 lands to the south, and they are the developer with this proposal this evening.
Follow on.
So just for my own clarification then, Gallo Homes is finishing off the present subdivision and moving on. No, I totally misunderstood that. Please clarify.
Planner Belcourt.
Thank you, Chair Thompson. Through you to Councillor Fisher. I apologize if I mixed that up a little.
Totally.
So the Gallo and Amelia Holmes were the original developer of the subdivision. They developed, I would say, a good chunk of phase 1A of the subdivision. However, they sold phase 1B, phase 1C, and phase 2, and Darren, perhaps you can correct me if I'm wrong, to Huron Creek. Huron Creek has continued on developing the subdivision. So as you heard tonight, I believe Mr. Thompson purchased his home from Huron Creek, whereas a number of others purchased them from Amelia Homes or as second-time homeowners.
Follow on, Councillor Fisher.
Through the chair to Planner Belcourt. So has the present developer finished off the existing subdivision sufficiently before we even entertain moving on?
Planner Belcourt.
Thank you, Chair Thompson. Through you to Councillor Fisher. The developer, I understand, is still continuing to build out phase 1B and meet their obligations and requirements under any subdivision agreements with the township at present.
Councillor Garwood.
Thank you, Chair Thompson. Through you to Planner Belcourt. I know in the report it speaks to the entrance off of Queen Street West that this primarily will be entering off of. I know we've also spoken about the emergency entrance, which is not permitted for residential use. I know in the graphics as well, it also speaks to road widening in that space. Again, while it's in the report, just for the purpose of the public, can you please speak to whether or not turning lanes are required and how that traffic movement process will work, understanding that should this proceed, there would be a significant large amount of vehicles in that space that wouldn't exist today?
Planner Belcourt.
Thank you, Chair Thompson. Through you to Councillor Garwood. In looking at the traffic impact study that was completed by the applicants and submitted, the recommendations in that by their traffic engineer does note that a left nor right turn lane is required, and that is based on provincial standards and the traffic calculations that they completed through the study.
Follow on, Councillor Garwood.
Thank you, Chair Thompson. I'm just going to end my comments with one last statement. I do want to, again, specifically state that I absolutely feel for the residents that are bringing these concerns forward. This is important. I personally live in a subdivision with development right beside me, behind me, across from me. So my beautiful farm view view is slipping away from the day. So by the day. So I understand what that feels like. I am absolutely willing to sit down at kitchen tables and have this conversation with all of you. That is my commitment. I'm happy if anyone wants to stay around after the meeting and also chat. I know I've already offered that to one resident. I'm happy to have that conversation and continue to advocate your concerns at this table as much as I possibly can. Thank you.
Mayor Coughlin.
Thank you, Chair. And through you, just one last question. Is there concern from staff by removing this commercial? If we were to change it from commercial to residential, are we still able to meet our targets in that area? Do you think that there's still enough in the Elmvale area to serve the community, or would that be coming forward during a subsequent report?
Director Heron.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and to Mayor Coughlin. Staff have not yet entertained an analysis. We're still in the information gathering. We've received some, but not all comments to the agencies and departments that we circulated to. There's still quite a bit of discussion to be had in terms of any direction whatsoever. So it's far premature to come to any conclusions on whether the request for change of use is appropriate or not at this point in time. To answer your question specifically in terms of, I think you're relating to employment lands, possibly, which is a direction under the provincial growth plan. We would be performing an analysis of growth plan compliance and whether or not there would be a loss of employment lands or whether it would be balanced against a gain of population density within a settlement area. But at this point, we're not we're not in a position to provide a comment one way or another.
Thank you to all who participated in this public meeting with respect to the proposed draft plan of subdivision, official plan amendment, and the zoning bylaw amendment, and for showing an interest in this matter. May I have a mover and a seconder to adjourn this public meeting? Councillor Fisher and Moore, that the public meeting of council held under section 17, 21, 34, and 51 of the Planning Act for applications ZB 2024001, B Franson, ZB 2024008, R Randall, OP 2024002, and ZB 2024003, McColgan Pit Expansion, SU 2024001, OP 2024003, and ZB 2024004, Huron Creek, does now adjourn at 8:55 p.m. All in favor? And that is passed. May I have a mover? Oops. May I have a mover and seconder to refer ZB 2024001, B Franson, 4299 Penetang Washeen Road back to staff, that council having held a public meeting in accordance with section 34 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990C, P13 as amended, zoning bylaw amendment ZB 2024001 by B Franson, having noted correspondence and input received, direct that the application be referred back to staff. Are there any questions or discussions on this motion? All those in favor? So we need a mover and seconder. Garwood and Councillor Fisher. All those in favor? And that is carried. May I have a mover and seconder to refer ZB 2024008 R Randall, Block 60, Plan 51M, 430, Hoyston Gate back to staff. We have Deputy Mayor Cabral and Councillor Garwood, that council having held a public meeting in accordance with section 34 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990C, P13 as amended, zoning bylaw, amendment ZB 2024-008 by R Randall, having noted correspondence and input received, direct that the application be referred back to staff. Are there any questions or discussions on this motion? Those in favor? And that is carried. May I have a mover and seconder to refer OP 2024-002 and ZB 2024-003 McColgan Pit Expansion 16969297 Ontario Incorporated, 1196 Ann Street North back to staff. Can I have a mover and seconder? Deputy Mayor Cabral and Mayor Coughlin, that council having held the public meeting in accordance with sections 17, 21, and 34 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990C, P13 as amended for official plan amendments, OP 2024-002, and zoning bylaw amendment ZB 2024-003 by Innovative Planning Solutions on behalf of 1693297 Ontario Incorporated, having noted correspondence and input received, direct that the application be referred back to staff. Are there any questions or discussions on this motion? All in favor? And that has carried. May I have a mover and a second for the approval of still one. May I have a mover and seconder to refer SU 2024-001, OP 2024-003, and ZB 2024-0004 Huron Creek back to staff? May I have a mover and seconder? We have Mayor Coughlin. We have a seconder, Councillor Fisher. That council, having held a public meeting in accordance with section 17, 21, 34, and 51 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990 CP13 as amended for draft plan of subdivision SU 2024-001, official plan amendment OP 2024-003, and zoning bylaw amendment ZB 2024-004 by Innovative Planning Solutions on behalf of Huron Creek Developments, having noted correspondence and input received direct, that the application be referred back to staff. Are there any questions or discussions on this motion? Those in favor? And that is carried. May I have a mover and seconder to approve the reporting regarding ZB 2024-009, Grassmere 1087 Carson Road? We have Garwood and Mayor Coughlin, that the report from the planner regarding ZB 2024-009 Grassmere dated April 10th, 2024 be received, and that the bylaw 5000-386 be presented to council for consideration for approval on April 10th, 2024. Are there questions or discussions on this motion? All those in favor? And that has carried. May I have a mover and a seconder for approval of the bylaws? We have Councillor Moore and Councillor Fisher, that the bylaws listed herein and signed and sealed by the mayor and clerk at 5000-386 ZB 2024-009 Grassmere 1087 Carson Road. Are there any questions or comments? All those in favor? And that has carried. May I have a mover and second for the confirmatory bylaw? We have Deputy Mayor Cabral and Councillor Garwood, that the bylaw 2024-20027 to confirm and adopt the proceedings of council at the special meeting held on April 10th, 2024, listed here and be signed and sealed by the mayor and the clerk. All those in favor? And that is carried. May I have a mover and seconder to adjourn the meeting? We have Councillor Garwood and Mayor Coughlin, that the special meeting of the Township of Springwater does adjourn now at 9:01 p.m. to meet again in a regular meeting on April 17th, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. All those in favor? And that has carried.
Good job. That's a lot of reading.